Alright, Khan, Shalom, Shalom, Israel, Shalom to the Torah, Shazi Yashala, giving, of course, all honor, glory, and praise unto the Most High God, Yahweh, in the names of God, saying YAHAWASHI. This brother Yashala coming back to y'all yet in another video through the Spirit Power, YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM, HaMashiach, YAHAWASHI. Alright, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah YAHAWASHI. So I'm going to get straight into this, alright? I'm going to get straight into this. This will be going into Matthew chapter 5, verses 43 on down. And I'm going to read this real quick. It says, ye have heard that it had been said, right? That it had been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. Right? So what the Lord is saying is, remember, when he says love your enemies, of course he's not talking about the so-called white man. Right? He's not talking about the so-called white man or, you know, other nations. He's talking about people of your own people of your own nation. You understand? Other Israelites, fellow Israelites. It could prove that with the precepts. But that's not necessarily why I'm bringing this out. Right? That's a different topic. Right? You can go to 2 Samuel chapter 4 verses 7 on down. You go to Exodus, all right, chapter 22. We're actually slacking Exodus chapter 23 and verses 3 on down. It will talk about, you know, Israelites having enemies of their own nation. All right. So that's what YAHAWASHI is talking about. But that's not why I'm bringing this precept out. I'm bringing this precept out to say that this is harder to do than some of the least commandments. Like, for example, putting on fringes. Anybody can put on fringes. You're just putting on a shirt. Anybody can wear a dress. Any sister can wear a dress. Any brother can wear fringes. Any brother can have a beard. It's not that hard to grow out a beard. In fact, your body's just doing it. You don't have to think about it. Your body's just doing it subconsciously, right? So all these things, and they're commandments nevertheless. Don't get me wrong. It's a commandment to grow out your beard for men. It's a commandment for women to wear a dress. It's a commandment for men to read, etc., right? Or for men and women, right, at that matter. But what I'm saying is, you have least commandments and you have greater commandments. And these is one of the these are, you know, one of the greatest commandments right here. When they ask YAHAWASHI about what's one of the greatest commandments in the law, right? Somebody came up to him and said, what's the greatest commandment in the law? What did YAHAWASHI say? First he said that thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind, right? With all thy strength. That's the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it, that thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two hang all the law and the prophets, right? So, meaning that what? By those two commandments alone, if you keep those two commandments, you're keeping all the law. But nevertheless, right? Because what does it mean to love God? It means to keep his commandments. That's 1 John 5 and 3, and John 14:15, John 15:10. All right, John chapter 14 verse 21, etc., right? Now, those are the precepts for that. But the thing is, loving your enemies of your own nation, that can be really hard, because you might have a grudge against somebody that's of your own nation. They might be vexing the hell out you. They might be cussing at you, disrespecting you. They might have total, they might have no regard for you as an Israelite, right? And respect onto you as an Israelite. These things happen in the truth, right? You might even, it might be an Israelite that might take one of your, you know, God forbid, but one of your family members, right? Takes one of your family members out, and now they in the spiritual realm. You got ears to hear. Now you might have a certain disdain for that brother that did such a thing to your family, right? And that's normal. But the thing is, just because you got your fringes on, people with fringes on got grudges. People with fringes on got hatred in their heart. And so that's why I'm saying that this is one of the greatest commandments. And it's pretty hard. It's like we said, the commandment's not grievous, 1 John 5 and 3. But what I'm saying is, this is harder to keep than putting on fringes or growing out your beard, or maybe even keeping the Sabbath day. right? Or maybe just, not eating pork, right? These are commandments, nevertheless, yes. But the thing is, this commandment right here that the Lord has given us, loving your enemies, praying for them that use you and persecute you and do all manner of evil to you, and out of all of that, you still being the bigger man, you're still being the so-called bigger person in that situation. That is hard sometimes because your flesh wants to give in. Your flesh wants to say, nah, F that, excuse the language, but F that, to hell with that. He did this to you. She said this to you. You want to let that slide? You want to, you know what I'm saying? You're not going to retaliate. That's our second, that's our first nature, is to retaliate. Whenever something bad happens to us, somebody says something vulgar to us, we want to say something back. And that's the flesh. That's just the flesh. But what does the fruit of the Spirit teach? Right? What does the fruit of the Spirit teach? Let's get that real quick. Right? This is the book of Galatians, chapter 5, verse 22. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering. So these are traits that we should have to one another. Love, joy, peace, long-suffering. Sometimes it's hard to be long-suffering. But then we have to understand that we have to be like the Most High, right? The Most High, he's long-suffering with us. You know how long he's been bearing with us for thousands of years, right? It says what? Gentleness, right? Goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. So that's the fruits of the Spirit. And that's how we should be conducting behavior towards one another. And I speak to this, to myself as well, right? Of course, it's our first nature to want to have to retaliate and say something back when they, let's say somebody says a smart remark to you and you want to kind of say it back. You know what I'm saying? As they taught, sometimes, I heard this since elementary school. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. Because why the negativity, right? Why the negativity? Not why? Because they're bringing you down. Why would you want to stoop down to their level, right? If somebody's disrespecting you, and when I say someone, I mean an Israelite, right? It could be man or woman. That does not give us the option to now disrespect them, right? And that's something I just had to learn. And that's what the scriptures teach as well. The scriptures teach about being the bigger man or being the bigger person, in situations which can be hard, which can be challenging. Because keeping that commandment is not something tangible, right? It's not something tangible at all, like fringes or abstaining from pork. Right? Those are considered, least commandments, because those they can't be compared to having the fruits of the Spirit. They're not comparable to loving your enemies, right? As you love yourself, man, right? And forgiving your neighbor the hurt that he have done you, pursuant to the book of Sirach, chapter 28. Right, that's hard, and we're not going to sugarcoat it. We're not going to sugarcoat it and front like that's some easy thing to do. Now, in order for it to be easy for us, we have to remain in the Spirit. It's only when these demons want to get us out the Spirit, then it becomes hard. But if we're always walking in the Spirit, it's not going to be hard for us, right? It's not going to be hard to be that bigger person. Now, I'm going to get this in the book of Ephesians chapter 5, right? This is Ephesians chapter 5 and verse number 8, right? It says, Salakia, right? It says, for ye were sometimes darkness, but now are ye the light in the Lord. Walk as children of the light. So the Lord is clearly saying here that, look, we used to be in that darkness. We used to be for the lack of a better term, Negroes in the world that just didn't give a damn about anything. We would go to war with another Jake for no reason. You know what I'm saying? Or you would be calling, our beautiful and comely and delicate daughters of Zion by all manner of different types of names, you know, and calling them out their names and totally having no respect for them, right? And even towards our men as well, right? And likewise the women to the men and to their sisters. But, you know, in the truth, it's not so. And if we catch ourselves having that worldly spirit, you know, we just have to rebuke it and continue to walk in the spirit of the Most High, because that's not the spirit of the Most High, to put each other down in terms of not rebuking. Rebuking is different, but in terms of going back and forth, right? Going back and forth, spewing smart remarks, being disrespectful towards one another. Hey, how you think that the Moabites got to such a nation as they are? They weren't disrespecting each other, right? And constantly putting each other down. They had a form of the fruits of the spirit towards one another. Their women is in order to their men, right? And their men know, you know, what to do in terms of how to operate with their brothers. So we should do the same thing, not copy them, but the Most High has been told us about how we should act towards one another in the precepts, right? Now, I'm gonna keep reading on. This is verse 9, right? It's verse 9. It says, for the fruit of the Spirit is all, it's in all goodness and righteousness, right? And righteousness and truth. So that's what the fruit of the Spirit is in. All goodness and righteousness and truth, right? Proving that which is acceptable unto the Lord. So we have to understand what is acceptable unto the Most High. You know? What is acceptable? I thought that according to the book of Romans chapter 12 and verse 11 on down, or actually verses 10 on down, it says, be kindly affectionate one towards another with brotherly love and honor, preferring one another. Paul teaches that we should prefer one another and have honor towards one another, not disrespect each other, but have honor towards one another as Israelite men, especially in this truth. If you're in this truth, the Lord called you. If you're in this truth, you're the Lord's servant, right? So what kind of master is going to let their servants just have no respect for each other? They serving the same Lord. They're serving the same master. It doesn't make sense to disrespect each other if we're serving the same Lord. We're on the same team. You know? How's a team going to operate when they're disrespecting each other and have no respect for each other and are constantly putting each other down, not walking in the fruits of the Spirit, right? Not walking in love or meekness toward one another, right? How is a team actually going to operate? You got to think about that. It says, and have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them, right? Yeah, so you know, and that's plain. That's, you know, that's it on that. So going back to Matthew chapter 5, Matthew 5, loving your enemies, praying for them that curse you and which despitefully use you. That can be hard because you might have that hatred or that vexation that person brings to you in the spirit. But we just got to understand, just going off the precepts, it's just a demon. Just like how you know, you got the lust demon, you got the pride demon, you got the slothful demon. You have all of these different types of demons that's plaguing our people. You know, I would say arguably lust being the most heavy, right? Lust being the most heavy and most prominent demon in Israel right now, or really in the world for real, because through lust comes the downfall of a lot of men and women, right? But nevertheless, just as you can identify all these different types of demons that's in the world, it's prevalent, it's there. There's also a demon of vexation and discord and right hatred and envy amongst brethren, man. And that's a real demon too, right? That's a real demon too. That's prohibiting us from actually walking in the fruits of the Spirit, which we should be doing. Remember, you go back to Genesis chapter 3, it talks about Satan. The Lord said, and he placed in the garden, in the east of the Garden of Eden, cherubims, which turned every way to keep man from the tree of life. Right? So what do you think that is? That's talking about Satan. Satan, that's his job, to keep us away from the tree of life. That's his job. It's his job to get up in between man and the woman and cause them to argue. That's his job to do that. Right? But just because that's his job doesn't mean that we're going to let him do that. Right? Yeah, I mean, he's sent by the Most High. Right? These demons, they send other demons, right? To get up between brothers and cause discord and confusion and hatred and envy. These are real spirits in the earth. These are real problems, because the Lord said to love your enemies. And that's something we got to deal with. And what's crazy is when you go to Matthew 5 and verse 48, right? You go to Matthew 5 and 48. I'm going to close out with this, right? All right, I'm going to close out with this. Right? Matthew 5 and verse number 48, right? All right, it's lucky. Right? It's Matthew 5 verse 48, and it reads, "Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect." So Christ said, "Be ye perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect," man. Right? He said that after he said all of this, right? And that's how we attain to that perfection. Because yeah, you could be keeping the commandments by not eating pork and wearing fringes, keeping the Sabbath day, or even going to camp, reading. You might even be teaching, and you think you're straight. No, you're not straight. Because we got to remember, we got to love our enemies, walk in the Spirit at all times, and be that bigger person, man. Which is hard to do, but it's something we can all work on, right? No brother is perfect, but that's how we attain to this perfection. It's by striving every day to walk in that spirit, in that type of spirit, right? But with that, all praises to Yahweh, BAHASHAM, HAMASHIAK, YAHAWASHI, right? Kwam Yasharallah, the water for tuning in. Shalom.